Hey everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to use vibe coding to help in your daily product work. So for a little background, a bunch of my PM friends have all been asking me the same thing lately. How can I use AI in my actual day-to-day work? And since I've been experimenting a lot with different AI tools to answer this exact question, it got me thinking, maybe I should create a few videos to help other PMs figure out which of these new tools are worth learning and how to use them to get real professional value. So, to kick off with something genuinely valuable, I decided to put the obvious stuff you might already know aside for a minute, like using AI for simple research or drafting PRDs. I think that the real game changer for product managers these days is learning how to vibe code, letting the AI help you code your early product prototypes, or just create little tools that help with day-to-day tasks. But here's the thing I've noticed. A lot of PMs are afraid to even try this. They get kind of scared by the whole code thing and just don't start. Others try but give up way too fast. This is a shame. Because while these tools do take some back and forth, which can feel frustrating sometimes, they're actually not that hard to use and can be very powerful. And honestly, I'm pretty sure that soon this is going to be an expected skill for any product function. It's not about replacing developers, but about you getting your ideas super tight before you hand them off to your dev team. So the main goal of this video is to help you to cross that intimidation barrier by starting with an ultra-simple project that actually solves a real-world product use case. And I hope crossing that barrier will inspire you to start using these tools. So here's our example use case. You're trying to figure out what users are saying, whether it's about your product, or more often a competitor product, by analyzing user reviews on the App Store. Now, if you're at a startup, you probably don't have that Sensor Tower budget yet that will allow you to easily download these reviews. And trying to build a review scraper with AI automation tools is quite a technical headache if you are not doing automations on a regular basis. And even if you did pull it off, you would still need to figure out how to analyze the data. But with vibe coding, you can do this surprisingly fast and with relatively little effort. So let's start. Okay, so my setup for this is going to be using Claude Code CLI tool. And what that is, it's basically an AI coding agent that runs in a command line, also known as a terminal. But just to make things a little more comfortable, we're going to open Claude Code in a terminal window inside an IDE. If you haven't heard that term, an IDE is basically an editor environment that helps you to better manage your project and its files. I'm using a tool called Cursor for that purpose. Cursor is an IDE with its own built-in AI coding agent. But I'm only using its editor function, and that's because I'm using the Claude Code CLI in a Cursor terminal window as my AI brain instead. This workflow also works perfectly in other editors, like VS Code. So I know what some of you are probably thinking. Dude, this seems so complicated. Why not just use a more friendly vibe coding tool like Lovable, for example? And look, that's a fair question. Those tools are great, and I definitely recommend you experiment with them as well. But from my experience, they are still way less robust and flexible than Claude Code, and often when I try to do something complex or custom, I hit a wall and spend hours stuck in some endless debugging loop. This Claude Code setup, yeah, it might take a bit more time to get going, but it's really not that complicated and way more powerful and flexible. Quick heads up, you will need a paid Claude account to run Claude Code, which is about $17 a month. I know, another subscription. But trust me, as of right now, it is probably the best coding agent out there. All right, let's start with installing everything. This is the first part that can feel a little scary if you don't code, but it's actually quite easy and fast. There are many YouTube videos that cover this, but my personal recommendation is to use an LLM like ChatGPT to guide you through the process step by step. So once you see how easy it is, you will be empowered to use this with every future installation. Okay, let's use this prompt. Please give me a clear and detailed step-by-step guide on what I need to do in order to install Claude Code CLI tool and Cursor and activate Claude Code inside Cursor. This guide should be aimed at a non-technical reader who is completely new to vibe coding, and we can see it generating a very clear and complete step-by-step instructions for doing everything we need to accomplish the task. Still, you might get stuck with questions or unexpected error messages, so whenever I'm stuck, I just take a screenshot, turn back to the chat, paste it in, and ask what to do next. So I'll challenge you to do all these installations on your own, and we will jump forward straight to setting our project. Okay, so after installing everything, first things first, let's create a new folder where we will store all our project files, and we'll call it Google Play Reviews Scraper. Now, I'll open Cursor, and to start working, the first step is to open our new project folder. And we can see Cursor opened up with our project, which is still empty. Okay, let's open a terminal window from the main menu. The great thing is it already opens in our project directory, so we don't need to find the right folder. So now let's fire up Claude by typing Claude and hitting enter, and we're set to go. All right, one last thing before we code. The key is to manage Claude like a dev team by understanding its three work modes. First up is default mode, which is like your hands-on developer, and it asks for approval on every single change. Next up, plan mode is like your software architect. It provides a full technical plan before starting any work. And finally, there's auto mode, which is like your feature lead, trusted to execute a plan autonomously. Personally, I always start new projects in plan mode to review the strategy before coding begins. You can easily switch between modes using the Shift+Tab keyboard shortcut to cycle through them. So let's go ahead and jump over to plan mode by pressing it twice. Alright, it's time to give Claude its first prompt. Since what we're building today is super simple from a product perspective, I prefer using a relatively simple prompt, but there are really no rules here. For tight control over every detail, you can give Claude a full-blown PRD. Just place the document in the project folder and ask it to read it. Or you can choose to give it a very short general prompt for a much bigger task, like, for example, asking it to build a fully working Instagram clone. Do this if you are okay with the AI deciding on the details, and it can often do it surprisingly well. I'd suggest experimenting with both methods, as each is useful depending on your project's goals. My starting prompt for this project isn't a full PRD, but it's more than just a one-liner. Let's quickly walk through it. I start by calling it a tiny web tool to set the scope, telling it not to over-engineer this, and suggest the required interface. I then specify the core task to pull all Google Play reviews for an app and create a downloadable PDF, with all reviews numbered and arranged by date, and with each review containing specific details like index, star rating, text, date, etc. For the UX, I lay out a simple user flow. Paste a link, click Start, see the progress, and get a download button. Next, I give it 3 key instructions for the project itself. Handle any needed installations so the tool works right out of the box. Create a detailed README file so any new Claude session can just read this one file for context instead of reanalyzing the entire codebase. And last, create an instruction file for users onboarding. Finally, and this is very important, I tell it to first do a deep research for the best and most current method for scraping Google Play, to prevent it from using outdated methods, and then to ultra-think the final plan based on that research. So what exactly is ultra-think? In Claude, you can control the depth of the AI's response by using the keywords think, think hard, and ultra-think directly in your prompt, which basically allocates a bigger thinking budget for it. Ultra-think is the deepest option, perfect for complex planning or debugging. But here's the catch, don't overuse it. It consumes more usage tokens, hitting your limits faster, and can slow down and over-engineer simple tasks. So use it only when it really counts. Alright, so there are several ways we can drop our prompt into Claude. We can type it directly into the chat, copy and paste it from our document, or, my favorite lazy shortcut, just take a screenshot of the prompt, drag it into the chat, and ask Claude to build the plan from the text in that screenshot. Let's hit enter to kick off the planning. During this process, Claude may ask for permission to do things like read a screenshot or run a web search. You can approve these one by one or tell it not to ask again for that type of action. Alright, let's fast forward a bit. Claude has finished generating and there it is, a full detailed plan filling in many of the missing pieces, architecture and tech stack, implementation phases, technical considerations, etc. The plan looks good and now we need to approve it. Use the up-down arrow keys to choose an action, either allow auto-accept edits or manually approve edits as discussed earlier. You can also choose not to accept and keep planning. I'll use auto-accept as it's a fairly simple app and click enter to get Claude to start coding. As you see, Claude starts working, and as a first step, it will create a very clear and organized to-do list based on his plan, and will start executing the tasks by order and update his to-do list after finishing each task. You'll notice that even in auto mode, Claude still occasionally stops and asks for approvals. This is a built-in safety feature for high-risk tasks like file deletion or system commands, which is what we see here with npm install. You can approve the command or choose yes and always allow access to automatically run this command in this project from now on. For now, I just clicked enter to approve it. On the left, in the File Explorer, you can see Claude keeps building our app's entire file structure. We'll fast forward through this as it takes a few minutes to do this from scratch. But to appreciate the speed, just think of the hours a human developer would need for the same task. Claude finished work, and the initial result is ready for us to test, adding a nice and short summary of all the things he delivered to help us understand what he did. It also added the README file we asked for with all the project details. To see what's inside, just click on it in the File Explorer, and it will open right up in the main editor window. And it added the instructions file as well, with simple, easy-to-follow operation instructions. Before we test the app, just a quick heads up on two important realities. First, these tools are non-deterministic, so don't expect your results to be identical to mine. You can manage this with detailed prompts for more predictable outcomes, but don't be afraid to embrace that creativity and let the AI fill in your gaps, as it can be useful at times. Second, it's an iterative process, so don't be intimidated if the first try isn't perfect, which is usually the case. You just guide it with constant feedback until it gets it right. Okay, let's check out Claude's first attempt. So according to our instruction file, to start the app we need to open a new terminal window, navigate to the project folder, run this python run.py command to start the server, open our web browser using this localhost URL. Let's do it. First, let's copy the python run.py command. Now, let's open a new terminal window. Once we do this, we get a new side navigation that let us switch between the two open terminal windows, the old one which is still running Claude, and the new one we just opened which is already set to our project directory. Now let's paste the python run.py command to the new terminal and click enter. And we get our first error. No worries. Let's just take a screenshot of the error message from the second terminal, quickly drag it back into the first terminal window that runs Claude, and add a text prompt asking, "Why am I getting this error?" I'll use auto edit mode and click enter to get him to quickly fix this. Claude thinks for a bit and quickly understands its mistake and fixes it. Apparently, the error was simply that macOS typically doesn't have a Python command by default, and it uses Python 3. In addition for fixing the command, it also automatically updated the command name in the instructions file to reflect the fix, without me telling him to do it. Now, let's try to start the app again. First, let's copy the newly fixed run command from the instructions file. Then let's open the second terminal. Now paste the command into the terminal, and click enter. And it seems to be working now. Now let's hover over the web URL in our instructions file and click the follow link tooltip in order to open the app inside our browser. And voila, it opens up. Okay, at first glance, the design is fine for an internal tool, but I already see a couple of issues. First, Claude misinterpreted a key request. It created a filter for language and country, instead of including that data with each review. This prevents us from getting all reviews in one PDF. Second, it added a redundant validate button when that check can just happen after we click the start button. We'll need to fix these issues, but before we do, let's first test the core functionality. I'll paste in a random Google Play URL, validate it, and click Start Scraping to check if it can actually scrape any reviews. And, okay, it failed. So that's our second bug already. But again, don't worry about these errors. They're a perfect example of what we just discussed. It shows the need for a patient, iterative feedback approach. And it's also a good example of non-determinism, as I'm building this app a second time for the purpose of preparing this video. But in the first time, this same prompt worked with no errors. Honestly, I'm glad it failed this time, as it's a great opportunity to show you a more realistic scenario of debugging. Okay, I've crafted a single prompt to fix all three issues at once. First, I'm pasting in the full error and telling Claude to ultra-think the root cause while keeping the actual solution simple. Second, I'm clarifying that language and country data should be included with each review, not used as a filter. Third, I'm telling it to remove the redundant validate button. Now, I'll copy this prompt. I'll switch over to Claude and paste in our prompt. I'll use Shift+Tab to switch over to plan mode and click enter to submit it and see the plan it comes up with. All right, we've fast-forwarded, and here's the detailed plan Claude came up with. It has laid out a step-by-step approach to fix all three of our issues. I've reviewed the plan, and it looks solid. So I'm going to stay in auto-edit mode and just hit enter to approve it. All right, fast-forward a bit, and it looks like Claude has implemented all the changes. It's even updated the documentation files for us, which is great. Now, for the moment of truth, let's reopen the app. I'll just click the URL from our instructions file to launch it. It opens up and we can immediately see it fix the UI issue with the redundant validate button. Now let's paste a sample Google Play URL and click Start to retest the scraping functionality. All right, after a minute, the scraping is now finished and we have a link to download our PDF report, so let's do it. Now let's open the PDF file. Okay, and here it is. Right away, I'm seeing a nice surprise. Claude added some summary sections at the top with general app data, star distribution, and number of reviews by country, which we didn't even ask for. Below that, we have all the reviews, indexed and arranged by date. It's not perfect, I see some formatting issues, but overall, it did what we asked for. Now I'll spend a bit more time giving it prompts to polish the output, but we'll fast forward through that, as it's just more of the same iterative process, and I'm sure you get the gist of it by now. After a few more prompts, I finally got an output I'm happy with. I had Claude switch the format to an Excel spreadsheet, which was much better than a PDF for handling the large amount of data and displaying all the different languages and emojis. Second, I had it break down the reviews into separate tabs for each language, using a rolling index to give every review a unique number. Our next step is to analyze this spreadsheet for insights, and we have two main options. Option 1 is the enterprise solution. Either try to expand our tool functionality in Claude, integrating paid translation and analysis APIs, or even use a paid AI analysis service like Julius.ai or PowerDrill.ai. This option is either too complex or costly for this beginner video. So we'll go with option 2, which is the simpler and cheaper approach, using an LLM chat to do the analysis. Surprisingly, finding a cheap AI analysis solution was the hardest part to figure out. My first idea to just use the regular chat on Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini failed badly on all of them. The standard chat struggled to translate and cluster the data, kept losing context, and even started hallucinating fake reviews. It took a lot of frustrating experiments to find an approach that worked, which is often the case when using these tools. The solution I eventually found was to use a custom ChatGPT bot, also called a GPT. It's basically a specialized version of ChatGPT you train in order to repeatedly get a very specific output. For our case, I built a GPT that automatically analyzes our review sheet and extracts insights in a format I trained it to produce. The basic process for making it is dead simple. Go to the GPT section and hit the Explore button. Click the Create button to start configuring a new GPT. Now we'll add all needed components. We'll add a name, a general description, and most important, detailed instructions regarding the type of output you expect it to produce in response to your prompts. We can also add files to its knowledge base. For example, I uploaded this example image to show it how I want the feedback cluster breakdown to look like. Lastly, we turn on the tools it can use, and this is where the main advantage of a GPT for our task becomes clear. It has a special code interpreter and data analysis tool that, once enabled, lets it handle large datasets with less hallucinations. Let me quickly show you how this dedicated GPT works. I click its shortcut to start a new chat with it. I then upload my reviews Excel file and give it a simple prompt. Analyze the attached sheet and build its topic clusters hierarchy. It should already know what structure I'm expecting based on its training instructions. After a little while, it returns its initial analysis. It first clusters all the reviews into general categories like negative, suggestions, or unclear. It then takes these categories and break them down into more specific subclusters, like for example, negative feedback regarding freezes and crashes triggered by ads. And sometimes it adds additional insights like mapping frustrating blocker levels from the reviews, as you can see in this example. From there, I can ask follow-up questions. For instance, ask for a more detailed breakdown of issues that fall under the general UX/UI cluster, and it broke it down into quantified subclusters like screen fit, clipping, resolution issues, with a count of 58 reviews. I can then ask it to pull up the full text for every review in a specific cluster, and it provides a list that you can audit against the original spreadsheet. Is it perfect? No. And when I audit it, I still find occasional mistakes, but it's still very useful most of the time, and it perfectly fits the cheap budget we assigned for this project. All right, let's wrap this up. I hope this guide inspired you to explore these powerful tools in your product work. We've really only scratched the surface here, and since these tools evolve so quickly, the key is to keep experimenting. Please share your questions or ideas in the comments. And if you want more such AI guides for product managers, then be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.